And hello, Celia. Hi.
Hi, Sylvia. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You?
Very well indeed. Happy to be here.
Oh, that's cool. Today I'm having a very special moment because I'm interviewing a dear friend of mine, Celia, who is a real expert in a field that most of us often struggle with, which is LinkedIn. I mean, it's become always more and more important, and now we really shouldn't do without having a good presence on LinkedIn. And now Celia will help us understand what we mean with good presence. But first of all, would you like to tell a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure being here with you. I'm Celia, Queen Bee of LinkedIn. My background is in marketing. I've been working in marketing for years here in London. Corporate escapee, left the corporate world nearly 9 years ago, actually. My God, time flies. And I've been working with business owners in helping them get more clients using LinkedIn. My emphasis is always from a marketing perspective, rather than just the nitty-gritty technical side of LinkedIn. Is how you can position yourself, prioritize your services, and use it effectively for campaigns.
This is very useful, and it's some kind of different perspective from what is generally heard about this. So I am sure that this can have a special type of insight for the clients. Which are your typical clients? How do you help them generally?
My typical client is in professional services, in marketing services, and in property. They tend to be small to medium size. They could be anything from architectural practice, a law firm, accountants, tax consultants, financial advisors. And I do work a lot with other marketing professionals. We cooperate in terms of helping their clients specifically for LinkedIn, marketing and PR, actually. And the way I help them, they normally come to me with something that sounds like, I know I have to be on LinkedIn. I'm not
Yes.
quite sure what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or I have tried this and it hasn't worked. How do I take it from here? So that's our starting point normally.
Yeah, and it is what I can confirm that I hear most of the times myself. So yeah, it is something that I keep hearing, and even my clients, they would definitely need and appreciate your tips on to get the best out of their
Mm.
profiles. If
Yes.
you were to give, because I'm conscious of the time and trying to keep these interviews like short and sweet, giving really
Yes.
the very best things that we can do in like 10 minutes, how we can get something in our day to think, some food for the mind. So if you were to give some tips or some things that they should never do without regarding their LinkedIn, what would you suggest?
One should never do without an overall strategy and a very clear objective. And I find that's normally the challenge. Either the strategy is missing or there are only bits of it there. And there isn't a very clear objective. It's a little bit like, I need to be on LinkedIn. I have to be on LinkedIn. Somebody said so. And you just go in and try to figure your way out of it. But there isn't a very clear objective. So it's actually quite difficult to then measure the results and see how it contributes to your overall marketing efforts. So having a strategy is the key one.
It is always important because without any strategy, it's just this kind of scattergun approach.
Mm.
And one thing, for example, that I think that you could maybe help my audience understand better is who they are talking to. Because sometimes when I talk with them and I ask, well, who's your ideal client? And they ask me, well, I can help everybody. So well, yes, but LinkedIn can be a great tool if you know how to use it in a targeted way, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And in fact, that sounds very familiar. I hear something very similar. They say, yes, I have a target audience. And then once you ask a couple more questions, then it's a little bit anyone with a pulse, everything under the sun
Two
would do.
legs, two eyes.
Yeah. Yes, so that's actually quite tricky, and the challenge is understanding the distinction between a service or a product we may have that potentially can appeal to a very wide audience, and an audience which is pre-selected for marketing purposes, where we focus our activity. Because even if our product or service is for everyone, and some products are,
Mm.
then it's actually quite tricky. We don't have the resources, there is no time to try and talk to everyone. So segmenting the audience is important, and starting that process, and that process actually starts off LinkedIn. We don't LinkedIn is the vehicle that will take us to our destination. We have to take a couple of steps back initially to define what is that target audience for us, and set the priorities, and be quite clear that we're aiming to help specifically these people, and these are the type of messages we are communicating to them.
Absolutely, yeah. And LinkedIn can help people very well to achieve
Mm,
this kind of goal. Absolutely. There was something that you mentioned to me before we were doing this, and it was
yes,
very, very interesting. It was a social selling framework.
that's
So
right.
once,
Yes.
yeah, and I'm very curious to understand what it is, because once, okay, we've identified the people we like the most to work with, the people that can be more profitable, but then how can we get this into practice?
So the overall strategy on LinkedIn is what we call the social selling. It's a very trendy term, but it's also very real, also a little bit misleading. What it means is the process of finding and connecting with our ideal prospects online. And the objective ultimately is to take that relationship offline, to have a conversation on the phone, have a Zoom meeting like the one we're having now, or to physically meet them face to face. So the social selling framework, it consists of four clear stages. The first one is to create the right first impression.
Mm,
And that's effectively our profile. Our profile is our foundation on LinkedIn.
yeah.
It's sometimes it's quite tricky. I know people are quite keen to start doing the work, but you really have to pause for a few moments and do the profile. And that is what I call the passive strategy. We call
Mm,
this the passive strategy on LinkedIn. It's there, it says the right things, and then once you have that, you can start moving to the next step, which is engage with your audience. And that's effectively the content, what we write, what we
yes.
post, what we publish, how we interact with our fellow contacts, how we're being supportive and being a good sport while adding value.
Yeah.
The third stage is growing your network, and consider this in marketing terms, that would be very much the outbound activity.
Mm-hmm.
So the profile and engagement through content is an inbound
Yeah.
activity that attracts. The objective is to attract prospects to us.
Mm.
But at the same time, there is another side to social selling framework, which is the outbound activity.
Yeah.
So that's us, and linking it back to what you were saying earlier in terms of identifying the ideal client.
Yeah.
Once you know, let's say I'm looking to connect with accountants, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Yeah.
in Richmond, in Chiswick, in Kingston, then you can put these specific criteria in the search function on LinkedIn, and then start connecting with these people. So growing your network, which is physically just sending out invitations
Mm.
with a bespoke message to a targeted audience. And the final step in the social selling framework is, how do we find quality prospects? So once you have that initial connection, then what happens next? And this is where a lot of people go, I'm not quite sure
Yes,
what to say,
yes.
without becoming, too coming
Pushy.
over as too
Yeah.
salesy, too pushy, like you're jumping people. Nobody likes to have that done to us. It's not nice if we do it to others. And sometimes it can happen unwittingly, simply because we don't have a process in place to
Mm.
say, actually, I will start communicating with my potential prospects in 2, 3, 4 steps. So does that make sense? That's the social selling framework, 4 steps.
It does, and they all seem extremely logical, and they make total
Thank
sense
you.
because, yeah, people just check and they like to see who they're talking to. So if
Yes,
you connect with them, the third step, then you get back to the first, because when you connect with them, they will check your profile. So if you haven't
very
done
true.
step one, then step three doesn't work, because when you connect with them, they check your profile, they see an empty profile, or they see a picture of you which is totally unrelatable. uh,
Yes.
it doesn't work, so they all go chained together.
Absolutely. And we all see that. I mean, if we pay attention, we connect with someone, they say yes. And then the next thing, you go on the who's viewed your profile and they have actually checked you out. That's absolutely right,
They
actually.
do.
So starting with the profile is quite key.
Yes, it is, absolutely, because people do check on others all the time. We
Yes,
do. We do. So
absolutely.
I really, really wait for something from you written with all these tips, and we will publish it on my blog so that people can really read through and they can take their time to ponder all the things. But please give us some links on where people can get in touch with you, because they will definitely want to try
Oh,
better to
thank
understand
you.
how they can apply this to their own practice.
Thank you. One option is to go to the website, which is queenbeeoflinkedin.com. And of course, find me, well, let me think, on LinkedIn.
Yes.
just type my name, Celia, Queen Bee of LinkedIn, and I will pop up and drop me a line. Let me know that you heard about the social selling framework. You may have questions on how to apply it, and we'll take it from there.
And I will add all those links to the footnotes in
Thank
my
you.
video.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sylvia.
so much. I would spend the entire day doing this,
Yes.
and maybe we can do another one later with some
Sure,
other
absolutely. More
important tips.
practical tips if you like. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, really. This
It's a
was
pleasure.
pure
It's a
gold.
pleasure. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you,
Bye-bye.
Celia. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.